Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video we're going to be following along the series of my PhD student experience so far. So the last couple of videos, in case you missed them, covered my sort of application process and the first semester of first year of my PhD, and the second video covered the second semester of first year and the summer of first year of my PhD, and that covered, writing my first papers, doing obviously the first bout of research that came along with that, doing some classes, teaching some classes, starting my YouTube channel, all of that stuff you'll find in those two videos. So if you haven't checked them out, I recommend you do before this video, and I'll have them linked down below. This video is going to be the first part of a two-part about second year of my PhD, so my experience as a PhD student of second year, and just this part will be the first semester because that had a lot going on for a lot of different things, so you'll see that. And then the second part of this video will be coming out next week, and that will consist of the rest of second year of my PhD, so the second semester as well as the summer of my second year of my PhD. So do be sure to subscribe if you want to keep on top of this series. We also have a lot of videos coming soon for Vlogmas, which I'm really excited for, so do be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss a video. For the second year of my PhD, I still had 20 credits of classes to complete as part of my PhD program, which required that we do 30 credits of classes. And I had sort of done a lot of the ones that I wanted to do in computer science during my undergraduate and master's, and the course that I had taken in first year as well. So I didn't really feel like there was any other computer science classes that I wanted to take. And then after taking the academic writing class, which is really good, I didn't really feel like there was any other research-based ones that I wanted to take either. So I spoke with my supervisors, and my supervisor, who is more engaged in the sports science part of my work, recommended that I take some introductory classes in sports science so that I would have a better understanding, since my research is a blend between computer science and sports science. It'd be good for me to have a better understanding of the domain. So I took two 10-credit classes in the first semester of second year, and one of those classes was sort of a basic class in exercise physiology and sports nutrition. And what was really good about these classes was that the assignments, for some of our assignments we did just have to do what was asked, but for other ones they were a bit more open to what sport you looked at for the assignment. So I was able to tailor the assignments that I was doing to marathon running. And that meant that while I was learning a lot of general information around sports science, I was able to have it be more specific and more applied to marathon running, which is where my research is based. So that was really, really good. So I did a couple of assignments for this class that were about the sort of fitness elements and the training plans that would be necessary for marathon runners. I also took a class in applied sports psychology. And again, I was able to tailor a lot of the assignment work to marathon running specifically. So I was looking into the psychological event of hitting the wall in marathon running, which obviously does have some level of the physical element of perhaps running out of energy storage, but a lot of the time can also be down to a psychological element as well. So again, I was able to read a lot more about that specific area, which I hadn't looked into so far in my literature work. So that was really, really good. And I really enjoyed both of those classes. I think they were really useful. So I would recommend anyone who's working in more of an applied research area, if you're not that familiar with the domain, to do some classes in that area, because I think that was really good. And then in terms of teaching classes, I was demonstrating for one class, which was text analytics, and that was all completely online. And to mention, all of my classes were also online from September to December of 2020. So it was still everything online. And the classes that I was teaching were online as well. So the way that worked was during the lab hour, where we would usually be going around from person to person answering questions, we would instead break into breakout rooms on Zoom and have all of the students just ask questions. And that was definitely a challenging one, because a lot of the students wouldn't put their cameras on or wouldn't ask questions. And that was definitely difficult. And I feel with all of the online demonstration, there was a big difficulty there, because a lot of the time students can sort of solve their own problems by discussing with each other, or let's say if there's a problem that occurs frequently, once you realize that, you can make an announcement to the class whereas online, you know, you keep having the same questions coming up, so it's just not really as easy. So now about the actual research that I did for semester 1 of second year of my PhD. There were two sort of main things that I worked on. One sort of smaller project that I was getting involved in. I had previously mentioned that we had arranged a collaboration with a couple of universities in Auckland and the UK. And we had done a meeting to sort of go through that. And during this semester, we had a few more meetings where we just, you know, talked about the project and the plan for data coming in. During that time, I did get some sample data to work with. So I was able to build the program that would analyze that data. So now whenever we have new data points coming in, I can just pop them through the program and have the results come out. I also worked on some exploratory data analysis of training sessions in the dataset that we have, mainly around the idea of trying to classify the training sessions that we have. So if you don't know much about running, typically a marathon training plan would consist of different types of runs. So long runs, easy runs, tempo runs, interval runs, all these different types of runs. And because the data that we have isn't labeled, you know, we don't have labels for what types of sessions people were trying to work on. So it would be ideal if we had some sort of classification system that would automatically classify our training sessions, but that would require us going and manually labeling some of the data. And some of the runners don't necessarily have very distinct sessions when you look at them that you can sort of say what it would be, whereas I looked more so at our more elite runners, so the runners who are running marathons in under 150 minutes. And I looked at their training plans and their sessions to try and get some really good examples, especially of interval runs, which are just harder to pick out. And I spent some time going through and like manually labeling all of those and just looking at the different sessions and just observing those. So I will come back to that work at some point, but I just did some initial work around that and it was really, really interesting, more exploratory work. Then the main element of what I was working on for this first semester of second year was my big PhD assessment, which is known in my university as a stage 2 transfer. So stage 1 is typically when you're doing all of your classes, you're doing the literature review, formulating your research questions, all of that. And then you do your stage 2 transfer, you show your work to date and your planned future work, and then you will move into stage 2, which is really more the core work of developing your thesis. I planned to do my stage 2 transfer in December and the date was December 15th. So by that point I would have been finished all my classes, and you don't have to be finished your classes, you just have to have like a plan for how you're going to finish your classes, but I had finished mine, so that was something that I could put in. I also had an interview for an internship right before the transfer, so I was able to go into the transfer saying that I had pinned down an internship for the following May. The stage 2 transfer consisted of writing this big report, which was an introduction to the problem that you're trying to solve and the basic research questions that you plan to answer. A pretty medium-sized literature review, I would say. Mine was maybe 10 or 11 pages. A summary of the work to date, which for me consisted of the work that I had done in first year around one of my research questions. So I was able to do a big summary of that, and then also the planned future work for all of the other research questions. So for that, I was talking about the collaborations that were planned and sort of a step-by-step of what had been done so far. And I was able to talk about basically what we had planned for the other research questions, and at the end putting together a publication plan for where we planned on publishing the work that would go into each of these problems. I think altogether the stage 2 transfer report was maybe 20 pages and then another maybe, I'm not sure how many pages of references. So that was pretty much what was required. It was essentially like a mini dissertation to explain what is planned for the entire dissertation. I'm not sure how many words it was. I will insert here how many words it was. But what I do like, I think if you don't have something like this that's similar in your university, I think a lot of people have end of first year assessments. Also, I know that it was the School of Computer Science specifically that have this report, and I think it depends school to school. and obviously university to university what is required. I think if you don't have to do a big report like that, so I know some of the other schools, because I know some people in my program are with the School of Business or School of Medicine, and they didn't necessarily have to do a big report like this, but I would still recommend doing it, because now that I'm coming back to starting work on my thesis and seeing what I want to do with it, having that big chunk of work already done, it really is nice, and it really helps to be able to just build from that and to be developing each of the chapters then based on the transfer report. I did really find that that was really good. So I had to submit that report, and then what we also had was a presentation which would decide the outcome. Before that, I also had to meet I always forget what it's called because they keep changing the name. I think it's called RSP, so Research Studies Panel, or else it's called Research Studies Doctoral Panel. But essentially that is a team of several professors in your university, and it also could be in another university, which is more specific to my program because it is inter-university, which will be people basically that you will present your work to on a regular enough basis, who will provide guidance, and that is almost like an extra layer than your normal supervisory team. So the panel for me consists of my 2 supervisors and then 3 other professors as well, one of which is from another university. And we are meant to meet them maybe once or twice a year, and I should have met them in first year, but I didn't because things just got in the way with COVID and everything. So my first meeting with them was just in September of this first semester of second year, and for that I was just reviewing all of the work that we did in first year. And then I had to have another meeting with them before the stage 2 transfer. So I practiced the transfer presentation with them, and they gave me really good feedback and really helpful feedback. And as well, I sent them my transfer report in advance as well, and they sent really helpful feedback for that. So then I was ready to go and do the real presentation with the transfer panel, and those professors would all be professors that aren't your supervisor. So for me there were 3, and the presentation was 5 minutes followed by a 10 or 15 minute, actually it might have only been 7 minutes even, I'm trying to think now, of Q&A. And you get grilled pretty hard during that. I think because it is sort of like preparing you for the Viva in some ways. Obviously of your defense of your thesis will be so much more intense and a lot longer, but the type of questions that you get, I think, and the way the interactions happen are sort of like that. It felt really, really hard at the time, and I remember thinking I hadn't done very well. I really didn't think I'd done that well. And essentially the way the transfer works is you either pass, or you're asked to come back in 3 or 6 months, or you're asked to leave and you get a research master's. So pretty high stakes. I really felt like it was difficult. I felt like I'm not sure I answered the questions very well, and I just felt like they felt there were some fundamental issues with the work, and that was kind of stressful. But a couple of days later I got the result and I had passed, and I had really good feedback. I think that's just one of those things, and I have heard from other people since that usually the harder they are on you in the panel itself, it means you're probably actually better off, whereas if they think it's a straight away fail, they might not be quite as hard on you. So I don't know if that's true. That doesn't really make some sense, but it also doesn't, because you sort of need to be able to get proper feedback in the panel, I think. Going into Christmas then, I was now a stage 2 student rather than a stage 1 student. And some people say that means you go from a PhD student to a PhD candidate. I don't know, but essentially that means that I'm more on the track to really doing it, really getting it, and getting my thesis done and doing all that work. So who knows? But that was pretty much it for the research part of things. The other thing that I did relevant to my research was presenting my work at RecSys. So this was a paper that we had submitted in, I think, May of first year, and in September of second year I was able to present that work online. So this was a short paper, and for that they wanted us to do a poster presentation, which is something I had never done before, so that was definitely a learning curve. I do have a video on how to make a poster using Canva, of course, because Canva is my fave, so I'll have that linked if you're interested, but that was definitely a different experience. And again, this conference was completely online and it took place through a virtual world called Gather. So you'd have this little like avatar that would walk around the space, and that's sort of how it worked. And then you could also have your camera on and talk to people as well when you get close to them. So I would have my own little poster booth, and then people would come into that room and we would talk about the poster, which was just a pretty crazy experience. And RecSys was really good. I also had a couple people join in who recognized me from YouTube, which was pretty cool. Definitely though, for third year, definitely looking forward to hopefully getting to get to some in-person conferences. The online conferences was fun, and like handy because if you have other things on, you know, you don't have to cancel those or whatever, but it was definitely, I don't know, not as good. And then as well, because you're at home, you sort of feel like you should work while you're doing the conference, even though obviously if you were at a real conference, you wouldn't be working. You would just be enjoying the conference and doing all the stuff. So that was just one thing that I felt with the online conferences, but I think the organisers did their best and did a good job, so can't complain really. I suppose some YouTube updates. I mentioned that over the summer I had become monetized, and since then had been earning around 200 to 300 euro a month on ads. And to be honest, that hasn't changed a lot even up until now. The income has remained pretty much the same. That's good because it's a steady enough income, I guess, and as a PhD student, you will take anything that you get. This was, I suppose, coming towards the end of my first year on YouTube, because I started my channel at the literal end, very, very end of December. I don't even think I posted my first video until early January. You know, after whatever, 8-9 months, I was making 200 to 300 euro a month from ads, which is great. And it's pretty steady since then. One of my videos at some point, I think around this time, started to trend for the term PhD student. So when you look up PhD student, one of my early videos, first or second in the search terms for that. And that means that I still get a lot of traffic every day from just that keyword alone. That's where I get the majority of my new viewers from. And then new videos also will have a certain number of views, but I think they're largely all of you guys who are already subscribed. That was something that started getting me a bit of recognition, and I was able to do a couple of things during that time in that period as well. So one thing that I did was I spoke at the PhD student conference, and I spoke with another PhD student content creator, let's say, who has a Twitter account but also has a YouTube account. Her name is Career Conversations. I'm just trying to think what the Twitter handle is. It's like Career Conversation, something like that. Anyways, she was so nice. Her name's Stephanie, and we spoke together for that conference. And the other thing that I was able to do during that time was I was actually asked to do an episode on the PhD Life Raft podcast, and that's a podcast that I actually listen to a good bit now. And I was just flicking through some episodes recently, and then my episode came up and I heard my voice and I was like, oh god, that was really funny. And that was a really good experience, and I definitely recommend checking out PhD Life Raft podcast because they have so many useful conversations with people. They have one episode with the author of one of my favorite books called Rest by Alex Sudunkin Pang, and that's a great episode. There's some really, really good ones. Honestly, there's so many good ones. And actually I had someone come up to me recently enough over this summer, saying that they had recognized me from my YouTube channel and from originally the PhD Life Raft podcast, from hearing an Irish voice on the podcast, and then they, you know, followed up and found me on YouTube, which was crazy. And if you're watching, that was my first real feeling like made me feel like a celeb, so thanks for that. It was really a funny experience, and I was with my boyfriend and my 2 friends, and we were all just like, did that really just happen? So thanks for that. At that point, I was building up slowly but surely, and one thing that I did during that term in December, I did Vlogmas, which was basically posting a video every single day for December 1st up until 25th, which was really fun, and I definitely want to do that again this year. I have a lot of things planned this year just because like last year was just sort of finding my feet, and I felt like some things worked and some things didn't because of the type of channel that I am, where it's more about PhD It's more about productivity. It doesn't really make sense to be like blogging every single day, but I think having more themed vlogs around planning, around productivity, and around, you know, just general PhD student things, I think will make a bit more sense. So I'm going to be a bit more organized for it this year. And I also just want to do it to get back into vlogging more and just to really try and record more of my PhD, because definitely over the last year I've been really bad at doing that. And I feel like it's not that useful if I'm missing out on vlogging a lot of really important things like writing papers and submitting things and all of that stuff. So I'm going to try my best to do that more, and I'm hoping that Vlogmas will get me back into the swing of things with that. I suppose other things that were just going on in general in second year. So just at the beginning of semester 1 of second year, we went back into lockdown after a great summer of enjoyment, and we remained in lockdown until May of the following year. Things were pretty rough, and so that meant for the drama school that I run in my spare time, we had to do classes completely online, and we were really hoping that we were able to do them in person for that term. We had planned everything. There was so much admin for me in that term, so that's what I'm currently doing right now, is all of the admin that goes along with that, for just planning the classes and organising who would be on and what days and all that stuff, and making sure that we have venues and all of that stuff. We had half a week of in-person classes, and then it went to online, which again consisted of a lot of admin, because you have to send out the links to everyone, make sure that everyone's able to get to places in their Zoom rooms and all of that stuff. So that was the main thing going on for me during that time. It was also just a tough one because during the lockdowns, my dad lives in Galway, and we had a barrier that you could not cross, 5k I think it was, so we couldn't see him for a long time, which was terrible. Was the same sort of situation for me and my boyfriend, who lived 7 kilometers away, so we would have to meet in the middle, which was just like, you know, you have to go and walk there and then meet up and then go for a walk, and it's freezing in Ireland at that time, so that was just a bit of a bad time really for just general life. So that means that I was working a lot during that first semester of second year, and it paid off. I think I got much more done in that semester than I did in semester 2, which you will see and find out about in the next video. So that is it for this video. I think I've talked enough. So that was just first semester of second year of my PhD. Next video I'm going to talk about second semester of second year of my PhD, which you'll see things change a bit in terms of productivity. There definitely is a bit of a moment. So I'll probably end up talking about the summer in the same video and talk about the internship that I did in the same video, just because there really will not be a lot to say with regards to second semester of second year. Maybe it'll be different than I remember when I go and make the list of the things, but I'm pretty sure I won't find that. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this series, be sure to give it a thumbs up so that I know to keep it going. And comment down below what your second year experience was like so far, if you're in it, or if this is helpful for learning what second year might be if you're in first year. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to all of my wonderful members, and I'll see you all in the next video.